Hey, this is your computer teacher, John here. Today is the second lesson of four. This lesson is going to cover operating systems, file systems, and the File Explorer. The reason we're doing the file systems and the File Explorer before we do the internet is because the paths, there are these things called paths in the file system. I'm going to jump forward to paths real quick. But there are these things called paths in the file system, like this. Um, this is where a file is located. It's located where it says open. It says C user Steve desktop WikiHow. So that's a path. And URLs, those things in the text at the top of a web browser, the URL path is based on the file system path. The concept of paths is taken from file systems. So for example, if I go to a web browser like Google Chrome, for example, here's Google Chrome. At the top of Google Chrome, there is, so this is the path inside of Windows, C user Steve desktop WikiHow. So it's the C drive, the users folder, the Steve folder inside of user. So Steve is a user. Then the desktop folder inside of Steve. So the desktop is a folder that belongs to Steve. And then WikiHow is a folder or file that belongs to desktop. So WikiHow is on Steve's desktop. So that's called a path. That series of words with forward slashes or backslashes between them. Now at the top of the web browser, if I were to share, this URL, see how this path here, www.wikihow.com/images/3/3c/find a files path on Windows step 14.jpg. See how this path here, this WikiHow whatever, this URL path, this thing, by the way, is called a URL, this thing at the top of the web browser. See how the path here looks kind of like the path here? Well, that's because the URL, the thing at the top of the thing at the top of the web browser, this link here that you can copy, this link is based off of the file path. So we're going to learn file paths like with the Windows file path, like this. We're going to learn file paths before we learn the internet, before we learn URL paths, because URL paths are built on top of file paths. The concepts are, it's a borrowed concept. So we're going to learn the fundamentals before we learn things that are built on top of the fundamentals. So that's why for lesson 2, we're learning, I'm going to go back to the beginning of this slide. That's why we're learning file systems and file explorer before we learn the internet. We'll get to the internet in the next lesson, lesson 3. Anyway, but first we need to make sure everyone can see. So for example, I have very thick glasses and I'm very nearsighted, so I have to clean my glasses every day. One nice thing about being very nearsighted is I can see the dust on my glasses and I can tell if they're dirty or not. A lot of people are farsighted, so they can't even see if their glasses are dirty or clean. But when they clean them, if they clean them right, they'll notice a difference. So I recommend people clean their eyeglasses every day. So I went on Amazon and I searched, let me zoom in here. I went on Amazon and I searched eyeglasses cleaner, and there's a solution with wipes. Most shirts, most clothing is not good for cleaning eyeglasses. I have a soft white cotton shirt that I can shake, and after I rinse the eyeglasses with water, I can use the soft white cotton shirt, and that doesn't leave any streaks. But most like t-shirts like this with like logos and coatings on the cotton and the clothing, like things like cloth with for example, like water spill resistant coating, or like certain artificial cotton blends just do not clean glasses well, or they leave streaks on the glass. So that's why for most people, using something like this is ideal. Also, if you're not sure if you can see or not, you can buy something like a pocket eye chart and handheld double-sided plastic low vision card for eye exams. hold card 36 centimeters from eye and see how far down you can read. Yeah, it's important that everyone be able to see. So the first thing we need to do is a vision check. So make sure you go to your eye doctor every year. You get your prescription and your eyeglasses from your eye doctor, or at least like get your prescription from the eye doctor and then maybe go to somewhere else to get the prescription filled. But make sure you have the right prescription and that your glasses are clean. Because computers have a lot of small text in places. Like for example, before we were here, right? Like this text here, like it's like I can zoom in and make it look big. This path, the C user, Steve desktop, wiki how, I can make this big, but by default, a lot of text is small, especially text for things that are like older parts of a computer system. Like by default, the terminal, this is the command prompt, also called the terminal. But by default, the text here is pretty small. It's possible to make it bigger, but there are some like quirks. Like sometimes the text gets cut off or doesn't fit in the window. So in general, I recommend people do their best to make sure their vision is good. But yeah, start with a vision check. Next, we're going to go to functions of operating systems. What do operating systems do? We're going to watch a little video. Computer basics for, so I'm going to go to computer basics for, let's see, computer basics for seniors. Okay, I'm just pulling a YouTube video from here. I'm going to pull understanding operating systems.
The one who dies with the most toys.
This is a commercial, so I'm going to skip this. It's just loading.
Did you know that you and your computer speak different languages? It doesn't speak Spanish, or Swedish, or Chinese. It speaks in ones and zeros. You can't communicate directly with your computer, but that's where your operating system comes in. The operating system, or OS, is the program that lets you interact with your computer. Together, the operating system and computer hardware form a complete system that determines what your computer can do. There are many different operating systems. Two of the most common ones are Microsoft Windows and Mac OS. Windows comes preloaded on most personal computers, while Mac OS runs on all new Macs. Operating systems aren't just for desktop and laptop computers. Mobile devices run mobile operating systems, like Apple iOS or Google Android, which are designed for interactions with smaller touchscreens. Before downloading a new program or application, be aware that it may not be available for your operating system. Some applications work on all devices, while others only work on certain ones. So get to know your operating system to see how it works and what it can do. GCF Global, creating opportunities for a better life.
Okay, so that was
If you woke up,
that was a little video on operating systems. So sorry, let me just go back to the slides. Okay, so functions of operating systems. Operating systems oversee operation of computer. They store and retrieve files. They schedule programs for execution, and they coordinate the execution of programs. So the way I like to think of an operating system is I like to think of it as a layer. So I'm gonna talk about this more, but let's go to the next slide. Operating system components. So there's the user interface, which communicates with users There's the text-based user interface, the shell, also called the command prompt. So this is the shell or the command prompt. This is the original way that people could interact with their computers before things became graphical, before things had windows. So there's a shell, and then there's the graphical user interface, the GUI. The GUI, so for example, this is the calculator running with a GUI. The graphical user interface, or GUI, came after the shell or the command prompt. And the graphical user interface is actually a layer on top of the command prompt. So the command prompt executes and like calls upon the GUI, the graphical user interface, to display stuff to the person's screen. So the user interface communicates with users. There's the text-based communication with the user, the shell, and the graphical user interface, the GUI. So the base layer of the operating system is called the kernel. I say base because it's like the foundational layer, like the floor of a house, or like the ground level of the house. So the kernel is the foundation of the operating system. It provides basic required functions like the file manager, the device drivers, so connecting to the printer, connecting to the wireless, like using wireless drivers, managing, like handling the wireless card, connecting to hardware, like to the RAM and the managing and connecting to the RAM and the hard disk, which is what we learned about last lecture. Last lecture we learned about the parts of the computer: the RAM, the wireless card, the motherboard, the hard drive. So managing the hardware, and scheduler and dispatcher. So it schedules programs. So I like to think of it as like a cake. So the operating system as a layer, like a cake. So the lowest layer is the computer hardware. So the computer hardware is like the physical, the RAM that we talked about last week, the hard drive, which we talked about last week, the monitor. The computer hardware is like the lowest layer. The operating system manages the hardware and provides a foundation that other programs can run on and share a computer with. So on phones, there's Android and iOS. On laptops and desktops, there's Mac OS and Windows. Also on desktops and servers, there's Linux, but we're not using Linux right now. It's pretty niche. I mean, the internet runs on Linux, but for personal computers, mostly only programmers use Linux. Anyway, the applications like Google Chrome on the far left, Gmail right next to Google Chrome, your Apple Mail client, your Apple Safari web browser. The applications run on top of the operating system. The operating system manages the applications. The operating system will say, like, this application can run now, that other application has to wait, or this application gets a certain amount of memory, that application gets less memory because they're sharing memory, things like that. So if I were to hit this little square button on the right side of my screen, or on iPhone, if I were to touch the lower part of the screen and drag my finger up towards the middle, it opens up this menu, which I'm going to open up now, which lets me switch between multiple different applications. So there's the URL cleaner, there's Google Chrome, there's YouTube, there is this Google Slides application. So the operating system, so I'm able to switch between the different applications. And the operating system is like that base layer that says, like, okay, we're going to switch to this application, we're going to switch to that application, we're going to put that application on hold, we're going to give this application a certain amount of memory or a certain amount of access, like access to the printer. It used to be that, like, every program, if they wanted to use the printer, they had to know, like, the hardware internals of the printer. But the operating system provides like a layer, like a facade, that's where the program can just say, hey, I want to print this. And the operating system says, I'll take care of it. And regardless of what printer you're using, it'll work, assuming they have the right driver, which can be downloaded, see the manual, whatever. But basically, the operating system is a layer below the application layer. I like to think of it as like a crossing guard. So I'm going to open up crossing guard, images. Okay, I like to think of the operating system as like the crossing guard, where the crossing guard will say something like, this application has to wait, and that application goes, and then when that application is done going, this other application goes. So it's like the police or the crossing guard that forms the foundation, so that other applications can share the computer with each other. Okay, let's retry opening this. So we have, anyway, so again, so the fundamental part of the operating system is called the kernel, and the kernel the kernel is that base layer. Some people consider programs that come along with the operating system to be part of the operating system. Those programs are outside of the base layer, they're outside of the kernel. So if you think of, for example, like Microsoft Word or Internet Explorer or Google Chrome or Gmail, those are applications. But applications are not part of the kernel. The kernel manages applications. It's the kernel acts as like the police officer or the crossing guard, so that the applications can share the computer without blocking each other or getting in each other's way. So now we're going to talk about applications. I'm going to show a little YouTube video that's going to talk about applications. So we're going to talk about applications next. Understanding applications.
The highest paying job right now isn't being a lawyer.
So this is a commercial. We're going to skip over it.
It's a little niche in finance known as.
If you woke up this morning thanks to the
So it's going to load for a second, and then we're going to watch this video about
alarm on your smartphone, or if you like watching videos or playing games on your tablet, you're using applications, also known as apps. An app is a software program that lets you do things, for lack of a better word. You'll find apps on all of your devices, including smartphones, tablets, and computers. Some apps help you complete tasks, while others are just for fun. Here's some examples of ways you can use apps. Mobile apps are apps that run on your smartphone or tablet. They can make many things in life more convenient. For instance, if you're looking for a place to buy coffee, an app like Google Maps can determine your current location and then recommend nearby coffee shops. Apps aren't just for mobile devices, though. The programs and applications on your computer can also be considered apps. If you've ever used Microsoft Word to create a document, or a web browser to visit a website or check your email, guess what? You've used an app. Some apps come already installed, but you can easily download or buy more online. Apps are about communication, productivity, entertainment, and more. With so many possibilities, you're sure to find several apps that are perfect for the things you do.
Okay.
Are you having trouble putting your...
Okay, so those were apps. So in 1 second, it's loading. So we talked about the parts of the operating system, what the operating system does. And again, I think of it like layers on a cake. The operating system is the foundation layer, and the applications run on top of the operating system. And the operating system acts as like the traffic police and controls like which application is running, which application is in the background or sleeping, how much memory each application can use, and like how to manage that memory. It makes sure that the applications are isolated from each other, and that the applications can access the hardware without having to know the internal details of the hardware. So again, the operating system as a layer like a cake. The operating system is the foundation, and the apps or the applications run on the operating system. And the operating system runs on the physical hardware. So this is the command prompt on Windows. So this is a Windows computer. And the command prompt has commands. So let's look at this real quick. So this is C, so the path, I don't need to worry about that. So the path here is C users Lance. So C is the hard drive, the main hard drive on Windows is called C. Then users is the folder with different users on it. And there's a user called Lance. So Lance has Lance is a user in the users folder. So this computer, this is Lance. Lance probably owns this computer. Lance is signed in and using this computer as himself. Now, they're using a command called dir. Dir shows the directories. So the directories inside of Lance's folder are called 3D objects. The directories in Lance's computer are called 3D objects, contacts, desktop, documents, downloads, favorites, links, music, OneDrive, pictures, saved games, searches, videos. So there's a folder here called desktop. The desktop folder is what's on the desktop. So if you were to go into Lance's desktop folder, you would see Microsoft Edge. You might also see Recycle Bin, although it could be a hidden folder. But yeah, that's the command prompt on Windows. The command prompt is the original way that people interacted with their operating system, interacted with their computer. Later on, this thing called a GUI, Graphical User Interface, was created. And GUI, so this calculator GUI was run by calling a command in the command prompt. Someone typed in something in the command prompt and the calculator popped up. So the calculator is a program. And you can think of the command prompt as like a window to the operating system. And the GUI is a layer on top of that to make it more visually appealing, to make it more convenient. So what is a GUI? A GUI is short, the word GUI, G-U-I, is short for Graphical User Interface. It's a technical word. So what is a GUI? A GUI is a pictorial-based interface that uses menus, buttons, the mouse, and other graphics to display a program to the user. So before GUIs, programs were just commands that were typed into the command prompt. So this is the command prompt, and the person would just type in like dir /B/C/D/D/L, and that command would print out the folders, the directories inside of Lance's folder, inside of the user Lance's folder. But later on, GUIs came along, and they are a more user-friendly, more visually intuitive way of doing the same thing that could be done on the command prompt. So an example of a GUI is this calculator thing here is a GUI. Whenever you use any program like Firefox or Google Chrome or Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge, you're using a GUI. You're not using the command prompt. But the GUI is just a layer on top of the command prompt, in sort of the same way as like there are layers with like the applications running on top of the operating system. The GUI, this, runs on top of the command prompt, on top of the terminal. And if you ever run a program, like run a GUI program from the command prompt, you'll see that the program will print out output to the command prompt saying what it's doing. That's called logging, L-O-G-G-I-N-G. Almost all programs do logging. You just don't know about it, except unless you're a programmer and you need to debug something. So next we're going to talk about File Manager. So we already got some exposure to files and directories from this dir command, which printed out all the directories. So we're going to talk about the File Manager. There's a directory or folder. Is a user-created bundle of files and other directories, subdirectories. So a folder can have other folders inside of it. And a directory path is a sequence of directories within directories. So if we go to here and we look at this C user Lance is a directory path. It's a path that leads to a series of directories and files. Whenever we visit a website like Wikipedia or some image or something, the URL at the top, like the text at the top of the web browser, on the top of Google Chrome or the top of Firefox, that's also a path. It's a path to the file or the HTML text file that we're looking at. So directory paths on Windows. So here someone's trying to open a directory. What directory are they opening? Well, they're opening the WikiHow directory, which is inside of the desktop folder, which is inside of the Steve folder, which is inside of the users folder, which is inside of the C drive. The C drive is the main hard drive on Windows. The users folder holds all the users that use a particular computer. Steve is a user on this Windows computer. Steve's desktop is in his user folder, and WikiHow is a folder on Steve's desktop. So if we were to look at Steve's desktop, like this is a Windows desktop, here it has Microsoft Edge on it, Steve would have a folder called WikiHow on his desktop. So that's a directory path on Windows. There's also directory paths on other operating systems like Android. So for example, here I took this file. It is a .jpeg. So if I zoom out for a second, the name of this file is find a file's path on Windows step 14.jpg. That the name is at the top. So find -a -files -path -on -windows -step -14.jpg is the name of the file. There's some information about the file. This is from the File Explorer on Android. And it has a location. The location on Android is in storage/emulated/0, which is like the base directory for Android, /download, which is the downloads folder. The downloads folder, whenever a web browser stores a file, it stores it to the download folder. That's true on desktop, and it's also true on mobile phones. So on the download folder, and then it stores that find a file's path on Windows step 14.jpg. And there's the dimensions. It's 3,200 pixels by 2,409 pixels. So pixels, we didn't talk about this, but pixels, when you look at anything on a computer, it's actually a grid. It's actually a grid where the grid has pixels, and each pixel has a color. The color here, like if you look at this line around this run, this line here, this little thin blue line, maybe that's 1 or 2 pixels, and maybe pixels are very small. It could be 3 or 4 pixels. But basically, when you look at a picture on a computer, or even when you look at a computer's monitor, you're looking at a 2-dimensional grid of pixels. So this image is 3,200 pixels by 2,409 pixels. So maybe 3,000 something pixels wide, that's the width, and 2,000 something pixels high. And each pixel is a little square on the screen. I'm kind of getting distracted for a second, but if we were to look at maybe like what are pixels? One second, what are... We look at what are pixels for beginners. The video is a little too long. Maybe, how long is this? 1 minute? Okay, we're gonna take a look at this real quick.
Pixels. You've heard of them by now. They're the little things in the screens of our computers, tablets, and even the phones we carry in our pockets. People talk about dimension, resolution, DPI, PPI, pixel density. But what exactly is a pixel? Wikipedia defines a pixel as the smallest controllable element of a picture represented on the screen. Every screen on any given device is made up of several hundreds, thousands, or even millions of pixels. If you look really closely, you'll see that a pixel is just a square of color. That's it, a block filled with a single color. Now, when all these pixels on the screen are filled in with different colors, they create the images we see on our devices. So now that we've established what a pixel on a screen is, how does it work? Let's say this block represents a single pixel. Now, inside this pixel, and every other pixel,
It's just buffering.
there are 3 different colored lights. They are red, green, and blue. These 3 colors light up in sequences with varying brightness in order to create the color your eyes see. If the color of a pixel should be purple, then only the red and blue lights will be lit. From your viewing distance, the pixel will look purple.
So that's because red and blue light, when combined together, make purple. If you've ever taken an art class or learned about the color wheel, they're called additive colors. So red plus blue makes purple.
And with just these 3 colors, each pixel can generate over 16 million distinguishable color variations. Truth be told, there is a lot more to pixels than mentioned here. Those were just the basics, but it's quite impressive for such a tiny thing.
Okay, so basically we've got pictures. Okay, let's open this up. So we've got going here. So we've got this image. This is a screenshot from Microsoft Windows, and this screenshot is a type of file. If you look closely, it's a .jpeg file because there's .jpeg at the end of the file name. A JPEG is used for photos. So if you've ever taken a photo on your phone before, the file extension would be .jpeg at the end. And there's a dimension. The dimension is in pixels. So it's 3,200 pixels by 2,409 pixels. So what that means is if you zoom in really, really far, I can't zoom in far enough, but basically this is like 3,200 tiny squares of width and 2,409 tiny squares of height. So it's a grid. Pixels are a square on a grid. But yeah, if you look at the paths here on Android, the path has forward slashes. Whereas if you look at the path on Windows, the path has backslashes. But they're both paths, they both serve the same function. So the forward slash paths are also used on Mac, on iPhone, on your like Macintosh laptop or desktop, also on Linux servers, on Linux desktops, they use the forward slash. This forward slash here, emulated, zero, download, whatever, they're all forward slashes on the path. On Windows, full directory paths start with a drive, example C, and use backward slashes. Usually when a programmer uses like a library or something or some tool to access the file system, the tool will automatically convert the forward slashes to backslashes depending on what operating system it's on. Then we're going to talk a little bit about security. This is a screenshot from a PowerPoint from a school lecture, but your computer has a password. You should keep your password secure. Either only you knows the password or only you and one other trusted person knows the password. So that's your password. It could be your password for your desktop computer, your phone. If someone can guess your password, either by physically typing it in or by remotely connecting to your computer from the outside, they can access your computer. So don't let people know your password. there's this stuff called sniffing software where if you're using a website and it's using HTTP instead of HTTPS, the contents of the website that you're looking at and whatever is being sent between you and the website can be sniffed by other people on the same Wi-Fi network as you. So you should prefer using websites with HTTPS over HTTP to avoid sniffing, where sniffing is like intercepting of what's being sent. If you're ever typing in a password into a website, the website has to use HTTPS, because if it uses HTTP, it's not encrypted, and so someone can intercept your password. Either someone on the same Wi-Fi network as you can intercept your password, or someone on the public internet where your data is passing through can intercept your password. Maybe AT&T, if that's like your phone provider, can intercept your password if it's not encrypted, if it's not HTTPS, if it's HTTP. There are people called penetration testers who try to hack stuff and see is it hackable or not. In general, like if it's not hackable, it's more secure than if it's hackable. Also, like attacks from within an operating system. So a process could try to use up all the CPU, all the memory on a computer. So like you might have like a program. Like if I tap I can look at the list of programs that are running on my Android, and it's possible for one program to kind of go rogue or to freeze up the system or to use up all the memory or to fill the hard disk completely. And when that happens, it messes things up for the other programs. So the operating system has to do its job and be like the traffic cop of all the programs. On phones, programs run in a sandbox. So each of these little rectangles, like this YouTube rectangle, this Google Slides rectangle, this Google Chrome rectangle, each of these rectangles is a sandbox, and they're like blocked from accessing other programs except for passing like strings of text between them. Okay. So now we're at files and folders. The graphical file explorer built on top of the command line. So we talked about that before, how with this GUI, this calculator GUI, runs on top of this black command line, this black prompt. So it's possible to type in like execute calculator, and the calculator will pop up on top of. If you see here, the calculator here is on top of the command line. So that the GUI is a layer on top of the command line. It came later on. So the graphical file explorer built on top of the command line. The files and folders form a tree-like structure. Folders make branches on the tree. We're going to learn a little bit about file exploration. And let's see, learn graphical file explorer in parallel with or after the command line. And let's see, web URLs also form a tree-like structure. We'll learn about the web next session. Okay, so we're going to watch a little video, just not the whole video, but just like 10 minutes of it, about how navigation and folders work on the command line, and then we're going to move on to the file explorer.
In this video, I'm going to demonstrate some basic Windows command prompt commands that every developer and Windows Power user should know. Now, if you're using Mac or Linux, you also have a terminal in those operating systems, and some of the commands are the same as what I'm going to show you. Some of them are not. Now, how do I open the command prompt? The easiest way is to hit the Windows key and type CMD, which is short for command, which gives you the command prompt. You hit enter, and it's going to open the command prompt. Now I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see it, and then I'm going to do something else here as well. I am going to open the Windows Explorer, and the way you do that is you hit Windows plus the E key. And then I'm going to navigate to my C drive. And when you first open the command prompt...
So I'm going to turn up the resolution. I'm going to make it 1080 pixels. That's like HD. If you're watching this video, make sure that you have a good display, that it's at least 1080 pixels so that you can watch this clearly. But yeah, I'm going to turn up the resolution so it's clear because this is really small text.
You're going to see the current directory that you're in, and usually it will default to open to your user directory. My name's Eric. Users Eric is my home directory. Now, I've selected the root C over here in the Windows Explorer, and you can see that it starts with the letter C over here on the prompt. Now, how do I get to the root so that these will match up? Well, there's a command called change directory, and the shorthand for it is CD. And that one's pretty easy to remember. CD, change directory. And then you hit a space. Now, where do you want to go? Well, I would like to go to the root of the drive, and there's a shortcut for that. If you just hit a backslash and then hit enter, you are now in the root drive. And notice how the prompt changed. When you're working with the command prompt, the prompt is always going to tell you where you are currently, because a lot of these commands, they involve executing right here where you are, or you're going to type a path to something that you want to manipulate. Now, the next question is, how do we see what is in this directory? Well, there's a command. It's called dir, which is short for directory. And when I dir, you're going to see that it prints out the same list of files and folders that we see in the Windows Explorer. Now, it's out of order because it organizes these alphabetically, and in the Windows Explorer, it does folders and then files. So this csv.log file is out of order. But everything we can see in one place, we see in the other. And I'm going to keep this Windows Explorer open because as I'm making changes using the command prompt, I just want you to keep in mind that everything you can do with the keyboard in the command prompt, you can also do in the File Explorer. So next, let's create a demo directory.
So listen to that carefully. Everything that you can do in the File Explorer, you can also do in the command prompt. So the File Explorer is just a graphical layer above, it's a higher graphical layer. The command prompt calls on the File Explorer, and the File Explorer can be run by the command prompt. So it's like the cake, the layers on the cake. So I'm going to do like a few more minutes of this, and then we're going to learn the File Explorer
For this video. Now, if you want to create a directory, you want to make it. So mk dir is the command, and that's how I remember it. Make directory. Put a space, and then you give it the name of your directory. So I'm going to say demo _ folder. And now when I hit enter, if it doesn't work, it's going to give me an error. But if it does work, you usually get nothing back. So I'm going to hit enter. Nothing came back. But if you look over here in the
So he typed mkdir make directory, and it created this demo folder directory right here. So now we're going to learn about the Windows File Explorer, because again, like the command prompt is very technical and hard to use. And I just wanted to introduce that just so you understand the concept of paths, the concept of commands, the concept of the kernel, of the lower layers of the operating system. So now we're going to go to Windows File Explorer tutorial. How to use the Windows File Explorer. Okay, we're going to go with this video because it's slightly shorter.
At a folder that has a series of folders.
I'm going to turn this up to 1080p. Okay, we're going to learn how to use the Windows File Explorer. And in our next lesson, we're going to learn how to use the web browser and URLs. Now, the reason I'm teaching you File Explorer before URLs is because this path at the top, where it says like videos, video screen recordings, basic file management, that path at the top is like the path of the URL of the web browser, of surfing the web. So now we're going to watch this video.
There are several basic skills that you need to have in using a computer, whether it's for your job and your job involves using a computer to do various tasks, or if it's just for personal use at home. You're going to need to know how to do a few basic things. My name's Daniel from Twin Bytes, and in this tutorial we're going to be talking about Windows File Explorer and basic file management. So we're going to get into it here, looking at a folder that has a series of folders and files that I've already created here. In order to get to any folder, there's so many ways you can get to it. Whether you have a shortcut on your desktop for your documents or pictures, music, videos, any of those things, or even the yellow folder at the very bottom on your taskbar, which is there by default, it takes you into a folder for some specific files, and it may not be the ones you want, but from there you can navigate using the left side here to go to any of these folders that you've got pinned to the side. Now we can also change what's pinned there as well very easily. For example, this subfolder, if I want that over there because I use it all the time, I can right click on it and choose Pin to Quick Access, and now it shows over here. I can click on it and it jumps me to that folder. If I want to go to the main folder, it shows up here where we were. This is called the breadcrumbs. So using the breadcrumbs, just like the name implies, you can trace your steps back to where you were.
So that breadcrumbs at the top of the File Explorer is like the slashes on the web URL, or like the path. When we looked at the path on the terminal, there was like C:, users, person's name. That would be fit in the breadcrumbs at the top of the File Explorer.
So I can click on this name and it takes me to that folder where we were before. Now if I don't want this subfolder in the quick access anymore, I can right click on it and then there's unpin from quick access. So I can just click on that and it's gone just as easily. Another way is working with the folders, sorting them around. I can say maybe this subfolder 3, I want to put that as a subfolder to this number 2 folder. So I'm going to click and drag it, and before I let go, it says it's going to move it to subfolder 2. So maybe I don't want to, I can take it away from there, but if I leave it on there and let go, it just dropped it in here. So I can double click on subfolder 2 and I see this subfolder 3 in here. I can now right click on that and cut it if I want to get it out of there, using the breadcrumb trail again to go back, and now clicking anywhere to make sure nothing's highlighted, there's the paste button up here. I can hit that and it pastes it. I could have also just right clicked somewhere and choose the paste option, but with this highlighted you also have the options here to cut, which I did by right click before, or there's the copy that you can take and even renaming it, which comes in handy because subfolder 1, 2, and 3 doesn't make any sense at all.
So one thing, we talked about vision and how everyone needs to go to their eye doctor every year and clean their glasses daily. The reason is because you get small text like this. Like you see where it says rename, where his mouse is. So it's really small text. And sometimes it's hard to change the text size. Like sometimes when you try to change the text size, it changes the size for some of the text, but not all the text. Or sometimes it changes the size of the text, but the text ends up being so big that it gets cut off and you can't see the whole thing that's written. So I recommend people, go to their eye doctor every year and get their eyeglasses cleaned daily, to clean their eyeglasses daily.
All. So we might want to say this is for YouTube tutor examples. If I can spell it right, then there you go. So, and then this, we can take that and now drag it in there, and maybe that makes sense to us, and that's going to be fine. So you can do a lot of organizing your folders by cutting and pasting, or copying if you want to take a copy of something and paste it. For example, this file example.
So the difference in cutting something and copying it is if you copy it, it leaves it in its original place, and then it puts a copy of it in the new place. So there ends up being two of the same thing. Whereas cut removes it from the original place and then puts it in the new place, but there's only one of them. So you can think of like copying, like photocopying. Like if you do a photocopy of a piece of paper, you end up with two identical pieces of paper in two different locations. Whereas if you cut something, you remove it from the original place and you put it into the new place, so there's only one. But yeah, all of these things that he's doing, like cut, copy, paste, and so on, can all be done from the command prompt, from the terminal, from that black rectangle where you type in commands. But this is like more like user-friendly, more graphical.
I can cut that, or maybe I'm going to take these here because we've got a couple of those. I'm going to copy those, go into here, and then hit paste. So now I've got a copy of them in here, which we can see is subfolder 2. Using the breadcrumb trails, go back, and I still have the originals over here. So I can work with the copies while saving the originals. Now, also, we want to look at how to find things, because if you're not sure where something is, let's have a look over here. We've got a file example text file, and over here we have another one, and they have the same name. They're both text files, even though one's got a uppercase E and the other doesn't. You're allowed to do that, having the same name in the same file type, as long as they're in different folders. If I don't know where that is, I could click up in here and search, and it's going to search within the folder we're in, looking at all the subfolders. I'm going to type in example, and it'll find everything that has the word example in it. So I got the file example that's in the folder that we're currently in, where we were searching, and then the other one that we can now see is in this other folder, and it tells us as we hover over it the file location. We even have this other folder that it found that has the word example in it. Even though it's got an S at the end, making it plural, it still has the word example in it. So it finds files and folders that contain those words that we typed in, or at least it has that word as part of it and anywhere in the name. So now we found the files and folders. Once you find something you want, you can then highlight it.
So I want to go back to something. So I want to go back to
files.
So if you look carefully at here, when he's on this folder, you'll see it says file example, and then there's d:\users\suppo. So suppo is the name of the user, and then \videos, \video screen recording, \basic file management, \subfolder 1. So that is the full path. It's also called the absolute path to the subfolder, to that element in the computer. So everything in the computer, every file, every folder has an absolute path where it's like that's C:\/ or D:\/ D can be like a different drive, a different hard drive than C. But yeah, every file and folder has that path. And you can see that path in the command prompt, in the command line from the terminal, the black rectangle with white characters in it, and you can see it from this file explorer when you hover over the thing in the file explorer.
Folders, once you find something you want, you can then highlight it, cut, copy, rename, whatever you want to do with it. Or if you're not sure where it is or want to just go to the folder to see everything, even though this tells us where it is, I'm going to right click on it and choose Open File Location, and this will jump us right to that folder where it is, so we can see what else is in this folder where this is stored. And you might want to see that for various reasons, and that's how you can do it. One thing I had to quickly clarify is that I kept using the breadcrumbs here saying it takes you back to where you were. It doesn't take you back to where you were. Breadcrumb trails, it takes you to where you click. So I can see that this is the folder we're in. This is up 1 level. This is up 2 levels. So I could click on either one of these and go directly to one of those upper level folders, or using this up arrow and it takes me up 1 level to the one folder before. But if we want to go back to where we were, for example, it may not be a higher level. I can use this back button here, and it tells me as I hover over it that it's going back to a folder called YouTube Tutorial Examples. So I can click on that. It takes me to that folder, and I can see the breadcrumb trail. And if I hit the 3 dots here, it shows me the full trail. And that goes back to subfolder 2 under this main folder that we were in. So it takes me straight there, which is actually ahead, not backwards. So there's no way I would see this in the breadcrumb trail because it was in a subfolder, not a higher level folder. So if I want to go forward again, it takes me to where I just was. So I can flip back and forth to where I was before and back to where I was before going to the previous folder. But the breadcrumb trails take me to higher level folders using this trail here. So that's the real difference between the breadcrumb and using this back and forward button. Something else that you may want to do is also taking a backup, which is really important. So if we look at this folder and say we want to have all this backed up, rather than select everything here, we can go back 1 more level using our breadcrumb trail. We can see the folder is here. That's what we want. And it's really just taking a copy of it. So I can choose the copy option up here, for example, now. And then we want a USB drive plugged into the computer, and I'm going to pretend that this is our USB drive. It's called backup. I can click on it. And now I can see there's the paste option available up here. I could right click as well and go to paste. So whichever way you do it, it doesn't matter. Choosing paste, the folder goes in there, and depending how big it is, it might take you a few minutes. But this went quick. I can click on it to open it, and I can see all the files are there and folders. And then we can disconnect the USB drive, so if anything happened, whether it's a hacker, a virus, or you accidentally delete something, then you have a copy of all your files so you can restore those if necessary. And that's really the big difference with a backup. I do have other videos on this as well that tell you the difference between online storage and online backups. Using Google Drive, OneDrive, Apple's iDrive, those things are not backups. People use them like a backup and think if the computer crashes, you're fine. That's true. You can get a new computer and restore your files. But if you accidentally deleted something, renamed it, lost it, it got corrupted, any damage to the file in a way that you're not able to use it anymore, it synchronizes those changes or damage or deletion up to the cloud and causes the same thing to happen up there, and now you've lost it. And the only way to get it back is from a backup. So a true backup is really having a copy, whichever way you want to copy it, whether it's the way I just showed you or using some software, paste it in another location.
Okay, So we're going to end things here. But again, the reason I was trying to teach you the File Explorer and the command prompt, the terminal, the black rectangle with white letters, is because the paths, like the C user, Steve desktop, WikiHow, are similar. The path concept is the same from directories on your computer to websites on the internet. So in our next lecture, we're going to do the internet. We're going to do, the World Wide Web. We're going to do websites. We're going to be doing the beginning of web security. But yeah, thanks for paying attention. This is a pre-recorded lecture. If you miss anything or if you forgot something or need to rewatch, just rewatch this lecture. Thank you very much.